Victoria McCooey. Wow, what a story. What a great conversation. Victoria was married to a narcissist. And I'll just take a breath there. She found out late, of course, because they do their best in masking it. The story is tragic, as you can imagine. Has 3 children, and things start coming out. And the first question I ask is: narcissism on a spectrum? Can we? Are there different dimensions to it? She talks about ego, and she talks about just wondering if just your ego or just your kind of self-worth is part of narcissism. Right now she coaches both men and women on helping them go through a divorce with a narcissist. Some of the things that a narcissist will say uh, when divorcing them are just absolutely incredible. Her story is so inviting and so enthralling, and she does a great job of conveying it all, and has done one of the most remarkable things where she just turns it around now and tries to help others. She survived it, and how can she help others? Narcissist gets thrown around so much now. I wonder if you hear it a lot. What does it mean to you? What does it mean when a narcissist falls in the water because they were, looking at the reflection in the pond? If you've heard that story before, can it be cured? Is there a school for it? Are you born with it? How can you recover? Just all questions and red flags that she saw throughout the relationship. But just a great conversation about it. And thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Victoria McCooey, thank you so much for your time today. So excited to talk to you. Is narcissism a spectrum? Are there different levels?
Yes. And we're all on the spectrum, even healthy people. Because, you need a little dose of self-esteem, ego, so that you can have self-worth and confidence.
Fascinating. Ego and self-esteem are on the narcissism spectrum.
Right, because there's a healthy dose, but when it goes too far on the spectrum, it becomes toxic to other people. So, people are always worried about, well, I don't know if my partner is a narcissist, so I don't know if I can divorce them. It doesn't matter so much about someone being diagnosable, like if a psychiatrist could diagnose them, because it's relative to what you can withstand. So if the behaviors are toxic to you, they think that's like a get out of jail free card. It's like, well, they're a narcissist, so you can divorce them. You don't have to rely on, and it's very hard for even psychiatrists to diagnose narcissists because it's such a gray area. Anyway, that's kind of like my soapbox, that you don't have to know that the person's a narcissist, a full-fledged card-carrying narcissist, in order to leave them.
Yeah, because there's no such thing. I mean, there's no medication for it, right?
There's no pill, there's no therapy.
Because your story is remarkable, and Was it always there, Victoria, and he just slowly unleashed it, or did it get worse in him? Or do you know, or this is what happened?
They call it a mask. They wear a mask, and the
Yeah.
mask dropped. So yeah, there were red flags that I chose to ignore. Are we just chatting, or are we?
Oh, we're
Is
live.
We're live.
We're live.
You didn't
Yeah,
tell me
Victoria.
this. I thought we were
Yeah,
just chatting.
we are. We're chatting and we're live.
Okay, well then, yeah, I love that. So there were red flags, of course, that I chose to ignore, because I thought, this was like the man of my dreams and everything too good to be true and all the things. So I didn't want to think, okay, well that's a deal breaker. I didn't want to see the deal breakers, but they were
Hmm.
over things I could overcome. But it really wasn't until I had my first child, and somehow I think that cemented the relationship for him.
Hmm.
Like then there was another layer of controlling me and my not being able to leave.
Wow.
And so once that baby was born, things really changed.
And I was going to say, is he born that way?
They say that, and I'm not a
Of course.
therapist, right? I've
Of
just
course.
done a ton of research on
Yes.
this. So I'm just reiterating what other doctors and therapists have said, that there is usually an episode or a moment, that most narcissists are men, and we're going to get flooded with people saying, oh
Mm.
no, they're women. It's like, that's just a statistic. They say, like, uh, government statistics, 75% of narcissists are men.
Hmm.
Yes, there are lots of female narcissists too. But remember, we're
25%.
not just talking about card carrying narcissists. We're talking about anyone who has severe narcissistic tendencies too.
Mm.
So, yeah, they are typically men who in adolescence had something trigger this splitting type of situation. They say it's usually when one parent or parental figure, so it could be a coach, a teacher, an uncle, like some parental figure in their life leaves or abandons them, either emotionally abandons them, physically abandons them, and the other parental figure overcompensates for that.
Interesting. They overcompensate, so they their worth gets inflated.
They have this I'm good, I'm bad thing happening that they can't work out for themselves. Like, I'm so bad that somebody left me, but I'm told by this other person that I'm perfect, I'm great, I'm the best. And it just sort of like, I don't know, short sh- short fuses
Manifests.
something like,
Yeah.
that they can't overcome, and that's the event that creates the narcissism.
And can it be cured? Can they get treatment? Can they get Oh,
What
look at your
I
face.
have learned through my research is that
Yeah.
no, there's no pill,
Wow.
there's no therapy. But it's mostly because they don't want to be cured.
Mm, mm.
Their tendencies are grandiosity, and that they know more than anybody else. They know more than the therapist, they know more than the lawyer, they know more than the
Hmm.
doctor. So they're not willing to accept that they're flawed and that they even need help. So it's not that there is no therapy, it's just they're not willing to accept therapy.
Wow. Will they admit that they are a narcissist?
Usually not. There's some out there on social media who say they're self-proclaimed narcissists and
Mm.
try to help or give advice or whatever. I don't know. They may be. I don't know if they're the exception that proves the rule, but typically, no. What they will do is tell their partner that they're the narcissist.
Mm.
The projection, like, you're the one with the problem, you're the one who is a narcissist, or you're the one is entitled, or they project all of their feelings and behaviors onto their spouse or partner.
It's just tragic. And just can't help but think. So when we have to deal with a narcissist in our life, that's a family, that's a relative. You could pick and choose your friends. Some relatives you can't, obviously. How's the best way to deal with them? In small doses?
Yeah. Well, I specifically work with people who are married to them.
Right.
But yes, of course, in my research, I come up against all of that. I've had to also learn a lot about dealing with that. It's not my specialty and it's not what I coach on, but
Mm.
you create boundaries. You
Hmm.
might have to carve that person out of your life, depending on how toxic they are to you, or you just make it, you moderate how much time you're forced to spend with the person, and then you don't engage. There's something called gray rock. Have you heard of that term?
I have not, Victoria.
It's it's a method of communicating with a narcissist where you
Hmm.
don't give them any emotion. So you don't engage, but you're polite. It's not like they can't say, "Oh, you're not speaking to me. What's wrong with you? Why won't you speak to me?" Or you're ghosting me, or
Mm.
you're stonewalling me, or whatever. You just answer questions. You give no emotion. You don't smile. You don't frown. You don't argue. You don't take the bait, and you just become so boring to them that they lose interest.
Ray
Like
Rock.
you're a gray rock. You're so
Right.
boring.
Right. You're not black, you're not white, you're just a gray rock. Yeah. Very interesting. And you also talk about how some signs that are there that your friends, they either love or hate them. There's kind of no in between.
Your friends, the non-disordered person's friends.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I say you, meaning you, the non-narcissist. The narcissist either loves, or your friends either love or hate him.
That is very valid, and that is up to who they want to present themselves as to the
Uh,
friend.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's like it's so hard to wrap your brain around this disorder because it's
yes,
it's
it is a
so
disorder.
different from the way normal people think,
Right.
that it's like I always thought, wow, I would just love to see like a brain of one of these
Huh,
people. Like, what
huh.
does that look like in there?
Right,
It's got to be
right.
like all kinds of crazy cobwebs and how is it
Yeah.
wired? It's just so bizarre. It's hard for us to understand. And how that translates to my job is that it's hard. My clients are getting divorced or trying to get divorced from a narcissistic spouse. And a
Right.
lot of times the experts involved don't understand. The
Mm,
lawyers and the judges and the parenting coordinators and the forensic psychologists even don't pick up on it, or they're so good at deceiving, manipulating people. They're very charismatic,
right.
narcissists. They can fool all these experts into thinking you're the problem. And not only is that happening, but you're at the lowest point in your life. You're finally leaving a toxic marriage, which means you've been through years, decades maybe, of abuse from this narcissistic
Wow.
abuse, where you're so beaten down, you're so compromised, you're so triggered that this is what you're presenting in court. And it's not really you, it's the effects of what the abuse has done to you. And so it's not a level playing field, right? You're at your worst, and they're manipulating the system and the people against you, and you don't have the wherewithal or the stamina to fight back.
Mm. Yeah, you talk about engaging with them in circular arguments and best to avoid that. Can a narcissist actually have empathy or they just fake it?
They fake it. They
Mm.
understand what it is. They don't have it though. So they
Wow.
know that they're supposed to have it. They
Huh.
understand what it is for you to have it, so they can pretend.
So they won't cry at a sad movie.
They might fake tears. They're
Oh
really
my
good at fake
goodness.
crying. No tears, actually, right? The fake crying. Yeah, they're really good at that.
Because, I have a small tech firm, Victoria, and I do a lot of sales, and when I realize that my prospect is a narcissist, I love it because I just have to make the solution all about them and I get the sale.
There you go. You're manipulating the manipulator.
Right? Because
Right.
that's the only relationship I need to have with them. Maybe golf once a year, but other than that, I'm selling to them, and as long as they look good with our solution, it's in.
Well, narcissists are very unique, and it's we kind of need some narcissists. It's like they're
Mm,
awful to be married to, but
right.
they are leaders, or
Hmm.
a lot of times they're the populations with the most narcissists are politicians,
Right.
military, doctors,
Huh.
police. So, it serves a purpose in small doses, I guess, or in certain fields. It's really hard, though, to be in an intimate relationship with one, or nearly
Mm,
impossible, you know? And they don't get into those relationships with people who are equipped to go up against them.
right. Yeah, can two narcissists go at it? Can they be married? That's a very interesting
They would just
dynamic.
implode. I mean, it would be no. They need someone.
Wow.
I talk about how they target us. People are people ask me, how do I avoid? Okay, I'm married to a narcissist. I'm divorcing a narcissist. How do I make sure I never get into another relationship like this? How do I spot the narcissist? How can I detect early enough that I don't have to be in and get myself into another relationship like this? And I say, it's not about spotting the narcissist. It's about working on yourself so that you
Mm,
repel narcissists. They're not going to
mm,
want to have anything to do with you. If you're strong, if you're confident, if you have great boundaries, if
hmm.
you feel whole, and that you don't need anyone to complete you, then narcissists don't want to have anything to do with you.
I can't believe they would do that. The one thing somebody that you coach says
Oh,
about their
yeah, I said,
narcissistic.
I did a video about that
Yes.
is the one phrase that I hear in every single coaching relationship. First they say, "Oh, he would never do that to me,"
Right.
or she would never do that to me. And I'm like, okay, well, they're not ready to hear it, but they will.
Mm,
And then
mm.
it's like, I can't believe he would do that. There are no boundaries. And that's because they have no moral compass. The rest of us are wired in a way that we have a moral compass. We have a integrity. Um, we put our
Mm.
children's needs before our own. Right? We have empathy. It's hard to understand how someone doesn't.
Right. Yeah, for myself, for anybody listening, I can't, as I'm listening to your story and I'm, talking to you, Victoria, I think, geez, am I a narcissist? And the very first question I asked you if it was a spectrum, and I said, well, we all have some ego, and I certainly have some ego, but I love my children more than I love myself. So what kind of questions should we be asking ourselves? Because unfortunately, narcissism gets thrown around a lot, Victoria, right? Oh, he's a narcissist. I hear it too much.
Do you know how recent that is? That
Ah,
people did not even know what that word meant recently, like within the
interesting.
last 10 years.
Hmm.
My divorce started 23 years ago. So back then, no, well, first of all, there was no social media, there
Right.
was no Google, everything was very new. The internet was very new. And, so we didn't have the resources that we have today. I didn't know what that word meant. I
Hmm.
mean, I kind of heard it. It was what do you call it? A fable, a myth, about
Right.
narcissists and the guy who fell into the water because he was looking at his own reflection. And,
Right, right.
so that's all I knew, but I didn't really translate it into real life. But one day, the very first day, I did not have my 3 children. After we had separated, they went with their dad for the first time, and I was alone for the first time in, 10 years
Mm-hmm.
since I had my first child, right? I never had a minute alone. So I had a Saturday with no one needing me. I went to the library and I went to the psychology section. This is how this whole thing started.
Wow.
Psychiatry section rather. And I just started reading, like, why does he do these things? They're just like, they're crazy. Like, no, nobody acts this way. Nobody does these things. Like, what is making him do the? And I just started reading. And when I got to the section on narcissism, I mean, chills, like hair standing up on, on the back of your
Mm.
neck, like somebody was in my house watching and taking notes. It was just exactly my life. Everything he did was textbook. And it was so far-fetched to me that I thought nobody would ever believe me if I told them the things he did. And here it was in black and white. Like, this is a thing. This is not just me. That was like the aha moment, that it was like, this is a disorder that this person has. This is just not a husband being mean to his wife. This is like deeper
Mm.
and really scary, that he doesn't think the way normal people think.
Wow.
And that's how, I opened up this whole can of worms, and I haven't stopped since.
Yeah, for many, they would sit there on that day and kind of wallow in sorrow and make calls and have drinks, but you did the opposite. You went
Oh,
and
I
tried
did
to
some of that
learn.
too.
I see. Well, in between. But
No,
you
they
you
had to
you
kick me out of the library. I got there
wow.
when it opened. I didn't eat. I consumed so much information that one day, and they were closing and they had to kick me out. And I went back the next day. It was like, I couldn't get enough of this. It was so vindicating, It was
Mm,
like,
mm.
it's not me, because I had been told by him that I was the problem. Everything was my fault. I was the one with the mental issues. And you start believing it. Like, am I crazy? They make you think you're crazy. And then it's like, no, I'm not crazy. Here it is. Here is the textbook, the psychiatric textbook that is telling me I'm not crazy.
Your story is incredible, and I don't know how much you want to. I have a friend who says that she enjoyed painting the red flags pink, right? So she was ignoring them, and so this man swept you off your feet. You met in an airport, handsome, dashing, and uh, next thing you're married, and the first you didn't see anything abnormal before that first
What's so
child.
funny is, like, when people, the experts involved in our case, started realizing that had this issue, that he was a little crazy, they said, "How long did you date? Like, did you, like, get married right away? Like, he was able to hide this from you?" And how I'm like, "No, we dated for 2 years
That's right.
before we got married. Like, he kept this up for 2 years." Like, that's not normal. So it's not like I rushed into
It's a
some
long
marriage.
play. Yeah.
So yeah, even for that long, and the last 6 months that we were dating, we lived together. Like, I had no excuse. I had no excuse. I should have been able to figure this out. I wanted it to be real so
Mm,
badly
mm,
that
mm.
I was willing to overlook some things that were not right. Um, because it was never at me. Here's the story. The the first time really was gaslit. I don't know what the
Mm,
term is.
mm.
I didn't see it at the time, but okay. So I'm not from New York. I'm from New Orleans. I moved to New York after college for a job. Never expected to stay there. Then, in my late or mid 20s, I met him, started dating. So I was not as familiar. He grew up on Long Island. He was much more savvy about getting around me, whatever. So at one point he was picking me up in a car in Queens, because it was going to save him from having to go into the city. As a New Yorker, you understand that, right? So we were
Certainly.
going out east. Anyway, I had never taken a train to Queens before. So he was very familiar with the area. So he said, go to this stop. It's a huge intersection. I'll be waiting for you on the northeast corner at this time. Now, I don't remember if it was northeast, but it was like that specific
Sure.
corner. And there are no cell phones. There's no GPS. I do the research because I'm that girl. I'm like
Sure.
the rule follower and the list maker and the box checker. And we all are, by the way, all the people who they are attracted to. We're like straight arrows. We're like good girls, overachievers. We do everything right. So
Mm.
I am diligent about researching this and knowing what the northeast corner is, so that when I get there, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm early. I get there early. It is overwhelming to me. If you know, like a Flushing Avenue intersection in Queens in
Yeah.
the height of rush hour with millions of cars and buses and people, and you can't even
Honking
see.
horns,
And it's
smoke and
huge.
steam, and
It's
it's
a
huge.
huge
Yeah.
intersection,
Yes.
right? So I'm standing there on this corner, and I wait and I wait and I wait. Okay, now it's like way past the time he said he was going to meet me. And I'm looking. I can't find him. I can't find him. I don't know, 45 minutes later, he's still not there. So I'm like, immediately, this is a telling. I knew it was my fault. I knew that somehow this was going to be my fault, that he was going to tell me it was my fault. What did I do wrong? So now I'm like scanning everything. He's like, what did I get wrong? What did I get wrong? Is it the time, the place, the what? Can't call because, he's in a car. We don't have cell phones.
Mm.
So I think I'm going to go to all the other corners and look to see if I remembered it wrong,
It's
right?
good.
So now it takes so long to cross one of these
Right.
streets. Right? So
Right.
I'm crossing one street. I look. He's not there. I go to the other street. Now I'm a catty corner, and I look all the way down that side street, and there's his car. So I go all the way down the street, and I'm so curious, like, what happened? I open the door, and he's so calm reading a magazine. He goes, "Oh, what took you so long?" I said, "Well, I've been here for an hour. I was on the northwest corner, like you said," or whatever he said. He goes, "Why were you there?" I'm like, "You told me to go there." He goes, "Yeah, but you should have noticed that there was a police car sitting there." I'm like, "Wait,
Ah.
what?" He goes, "Yeah. And you should have realized that the registration on my car had expired." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And so any normal person would have realized that I couldn't go there. So I would be in the opposite corner. And I believed it because I had such low self-esteem. I was like, must be me. Like, I guess he's telling me a
Huh.
normal person would have been
Huh.
able to figure that out. And I didn't see it. I don't even know that I knew the registration was expired. Like, why would I know
License
that?
plate. Yeah. That's a very New
But
York
it
thing.
was my fault.
And that was really your first sign?
That was the first one I really remember, the big one that was aimed at
Mm.
me. There were
Amazing.
others I could think of, but they were always aimed at other people that I realized later. But that was the first time so I had always identified as smart. Growing up, I was the smart one. I got the good grades. I went to the good college. I got the good job. Like, I was the smart one. And in that moment, all that went away.
Wow.
I was no longer the smart one.
You mentioned that your father was a narcissist
Wow, you did some reading.
and you marry your father.
Yeah.
And because of this, you put your head in a book and you got very competitive and you became the smart one.
Yeah, well, my family was so dysfunctional.
Right.
My mother couldn't deal with my really, really terribly narcissistic and abusive father. So she just sort of holed up and became unavailable.
Mm.
And it was just so ugly that I just stayed in my room and studied and read and, just to remove myself. So Yeah, but that was my identity my whole life. And gone. Now I'm stupid.
So your identity gets removed in just one instant like that. I mean, how do you rebound from that?
Well, it's downhill from there.
Right.
Then I doubted everything about myself.
Mm,
It
mm,
was so easy for him after that because I didn't trust myself anymore.
mm.
I just became, and it wasn't just that one thing, but that
I
was the
understand.
big one that I remember.
Yeah.
But there, every day, every day, every day, everything was always my fault. I was always doing everything wrong. He said, and I was a very capable person, um, but it diminished everything I did. He, at the end, when understood that everything was just always going to be my fault, no matter what. This is before we split up. I actually was told by a lawyer when I went to try to figure out how to leave this marriage. And believe me, just going to a lawyer's appointment, I had to move mountains for him not to find this out. And there was terrific financial abuse. So even though I had a six-figure salary, I had no control over it. I had no control over any money. I had no access to money, even the money I made. So just to get $300 to pay a lawyer was like almost insurmountable that he wouldn't know about. So I had to borrow a car so he would know I had the car, like all these things to go to this lawyer's appointment. And when I tell the lawyer what's going on, that and how can I leave? He said, "Oh, well, you can't get a divorce." I'm like, but like, he verbal abuse and emotional abuse and financial abuse and all these abuses, and he's like, "Yeah, but he's never hit you, so you don't have grounds." It was the year
Wow.
2000, and in New York, you had to have grounds for divorce, and this lawyer told me wrongly that I didn't have grounds. He said, "But don't worry, sooner or later he'll hurt you, then come back and see me."
Oh my God.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I'm just stuck in this terrible marriage, and not. I just have to figure out how to have some boundaries, how to like get reclaim access to my money, how to do all these things that But there's hell to pay when you try. Anyway, so I'm in the kitchen one day. It is so depressed, right? I'm so depressed because there's no way out. I believe there's no way out. And I see my husband. We hadn't even spoken. Like we rarely spoke at that point. He's leaving, and he backs out of the driveway and hits the parked car across the street. And I'm watching this from inside the kitchen, and I go, "This is my fault. He's going to come in and he's going to tell me that that was my fault." And I'm just, how is he going to do that? It was not a question of if he's going to do it. It's
Wow.
how is he going to try to convince me that this is my fault? He comes in so angry. He goes, "That was your fault." I go, "It was?" He goes, "Yeah, because last night you said, I don't even know, whatever. And it pissed me off. And I was so angry and I was thinking about it and I was so distracted at how mad I am at you for saying that I hit the car because I wasn't paying attention because of you." And at this point you just laugh like, "Yeah, my fault."
I'm glad you could laugh at that now. Yeah. And you talk about the financial distress where you had to go to the grocery store and you had to write each item down and he would veto it and you would, I
The
mean,
control, the
the control
control.
was, and he had some kind of real estate company that was shady. He would put loans out in your name. And, you know, I only bring this up, Victoria, for hopefully anybody who's listening to say, if this is happening, do something right away.
I know it sounds like I'm such an idiot
It does not.
for signing off, but I just want to paint that picture that this is how it happens. Like here, I
Yeah.
was an intelligent person. I was
Yes.
well educated. I
Yes.
should not have been able to be duped into this. I wasn't some naive person, right? But at first, it was when I had three babies in 3.5 years. So boom, 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 right out of the gate. I was anxious to get married. I was anxious to have babies when we got married, and I did right away. And I was in a fog those 3.5, 4 years,
Yeah.
but no excuse. that was when, and I wasn't working. I was a freelance writer. So if I didn't work, I didn't get paid.
Mm.
He, and so when I stopped working during on and off during those pregnancies, he was managing the household. He was financially supporting the whole thing. And, but it was, I obviously agreed that I couldn't exactly work while I was having babies, but I would take small projects in between the pregnancies, whatever. So at that point, like around the third baby, he said, "Okay, I need you to sign for this loan for whatever." I'm like, "I can't pay that back." And he's like, "Well, you're so stupid. Of course you can't. Like, I'm going to pay it back. But I had great credit, right? He had no credit. He goes, this is what our family needs for you to do. You're not providing income right now. So this is what you need to do instead. Like, this is what
Mm.
value you have to bring with your credit to be able to let me do these loans." I'm like, okay, all right. So I signed the loan believing that my husband and father of my 3 children is going to do that. And then it's the next one. And then he wants me to sign for another one. And now I'm pushing back. And the more I pushed back, the more abusive he would become.
Mm.
And I'm like, I can never pay all of this back. I can never do that. And he goes, "What you're signing off on is a drop in the bucket compared to what I own, the value of and you're so stupid and you don't understand business and this is how it's done and you're naive and you don't get it. And I'm the mastermind here and you're just nothing and I remember you'll always be a follower. You're not a leader." Like, just
Mm.
trying to
Mm.
diminish me in any way he can.
Mm.
So I wouldn't ever happily sign away. It was only when he would storm around, throw things, have tantrums, make it so hard to be around him, not help with the house or the babies or and he would, I would do it. I would have to do it or my life was a living hell. And I felt like I didn't really have a choice. So that's how I got into all this debt. And then even after we were divorcing and you do discovery and all the financials come up, there were things I didn't even know about. He was just signing
Wow.
my name on all kinds of things that I didn't even know about.
Could counseling help at any point? Counseling?
Couples counseling, no. I tried
Mm.
that. Well, the first time I said to him I wanted that I had found a marriage counselor and I wanted us to go, before that got really, really ugly. I tried that. And his first question was, "Who have you spoken to get this name? How dare you tell anyone that
Wow.
we're not perfect?" It had to be this perfection all the time. And I don't I had talked to someone to get the name, but I guess I lied probably. And I said, I just found them, whatever, because he could never know that I actually confided in someone. Right. And so then it was, well, I don't have a problem. You're the one with the problem. You go to counseling. You're the one who needs counseling, not me. And of course, the marriage counselor said, "I can't really help one of you. Like,
Mm.
you have to both come." So that never worked. So do they? No, they if they're forced to go to counseling, sometimes in some states you have to go to counseling before you can get a divorce. Um, they think that they can manipulate the therapist,
Mm.
so they try that.
Huh. I heard you say that you wish that once the divorce was in motion that you would stop all communication with him. This is what you recommend.
Yes. So in a perfect world, that would have been the best. And I tell my clients that that would be the best, but nobody's ready to do that right out of the gate.
Right.
Nobody believes how ugly they can get. Nobody believes it at first. You never think, just like we said in the beginning, like he would never do that. You don't believe it until you see it. And so it's hard for people to go from, here's the person that I married, the father of my children, the mother of my children, whatever, who we shared intimate secrets, camaraderie, like whatever. How do I go from, and also there's usually isolation. One of their strategies is to isolate you from friends and family so that you don't have any support and they can brainwash you more easily. So that isolation is when you're like, no, you're so used to talking to them about everything. You
Mm,
have no one else in your life because you've
mm.
been isolated. So it's really hard to go from 0 to 60, like from this is the only person I talk to I can never talk to that person. Right? It's a big shift to make. So as much as that would be the best case scenario, it's really hard to convince people to do it right out of the gate. It's too hard.
And you say the number one thing that the narcissist says, while the divorce is starting is that everybody knows you have a terrible lawyer.
That is a tactic to get you to be insecure, like
Right.
to be
Undermine, right.
nervous, to any they'll that's how easy is that to
Right.
diminish your trust in your attorney. Oh my God, everybody's laughing at you because you pick that attorney. They know that's the worst attorney. Ha ha ha. And you're like, what? Right. It's
And
great
what
to know these things ahead of time so that
Yes.
when they happen, and they will, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not true. That's not true.
That's why I bring them up. And now, Victoria, what happens post now? You get a divorce, but this narcissist is still the father of your children and will be part of your life for the rest of your life.
I don't know that everybody wants to hear this,
I know.
but the less contact you can have, the better
Mm,
for everyone, including your children.
mm, mm.
Kicking and screaming, I got a divorce settlement that gave him 6 consecutive weeks every summer with my kids. Oh my God. I thought this was the end of the world. I couldn't call them. I couldn't talk to them.
Wow.
I couldn't see them for 6 weeks. And then I got 4 weeks. So I had most of their time during the school year, but in summer to make up for that, they gave him this 6-week block. And because our divorce was so contentious, I wasn't who you're looking at today. I was very compromised. I was not strong. I did everything wrong. That's why I know how to help people do everything right. Don't do anything I did. So I was in a really bad emotional place that I didn't need to be in. And that's what's so frustrating. That's why I'm so passionate about helping other people not let themselves get to the place that I got to, because I just
Mm,
kept taking the bait. I just kept taking his bait. But anyway, so our divorce was so contentious and it was so volatile that the experts, the law guardian and the forensic psychologist and all the people on our case, the evaluators, decided that the least amount of contact between us was best for everyone, including our kids.
wow.
So when they were with him for 6 weeks in the summer, I had absolutely no contact with any of them. And same for him when I had them for 4 weeks. So it actually, as much as I hated this outcome, it was the best thing
Hmm.
because it really minimized the amount of time we had to speak, because during the school year it was hell,
Wow.
the back and forth. And you can't even imagine, you get email. Well, back then there was no texting. So I would get emails that were like 10 pages long, all caps. It's like yelling, in writing, just constantly. And that's only because I wouldn't pick up the phone. But the phone call, the harassment, anytime I had the kids, he would try to consume my energy away from the kids.
Ah.
This is one of their tactics. But God forbid you try to contact them when they have the kids. It's like, you're trying to take me away from, I'm only watching my children. I'm only spending this time with my precious children and I'm not contacting, it's crazy. It's all smoke and mirrors. But they come out beating their chest about the best dad, the best mom. I've seen it on both sides. They just, the inflation, the ego, they want everyone to think like they're the world's greatest
Mm,
parent. And then,
mm.
but they can't support it.
And how about, the soccer games and the baseball games and the concerts and the school, and that must have been,
As a lot of my clients don't like to hear this. The ones who take my advice end up getting used to it and are happy about it. It's a tough pill to swallow. If you could only go to half of your kids' events, wouldn't that be great? I
Mm,
mean, not to have to see the other. It's not
mm,
that bad. You say, no, I want to be at every soccer game. I want to be at every, but I say, give yourself a break because it's
yeah.
better for your kid.
Mm,
It's
mm,
not that your kid thinks you don't want to or you're never there. You're there when it's your
right.
time,
Right.
when it's your time, when it's not your time. And even on the visitation schedule front, if it's their time, if it's your ex-spouse's time with the kids, instead of feeling sorry for yourself and moping around and looking at their little empty bed and, whatever, use that time so you can be a better parent when they're with you.
Mm,
Shop, meal prep, clean the house, like do your taxes, do all the stuff that has to get done so that you don't have to do it when they're with you.
mm. There's a diverse attorney out of New York. I believe his name is Ron Sexton. I believe
I don't know that
he
one.
he did some he was on Lex Friedman. He did some videos, but he tells two stories, Victoria, that I kind of that I really cling to, and I really get your feedback. One was he represented the woman in a divorce, and it was a little bit of a break in the court, so they came out, and he asked her, "At what time did you know that the marriage was over?" So she went on to explain how she liked this high end granola that she would eat it every day, and it was kind of tucked away in a cupboard somewhere. And when it got low, he would replenish it. He'd restock it. At a certain point, it got low and it wasn't getting replenished. So she kind of pulled it out of that area and made it a little bit more exposed, and he never replenished it. At that point, she knew the marriage was over.
So was he the one who was always doing the grocery shopping? Is that why?
I'm not sure why. That's all I
Okay.
know of the
So
story,
he
but that's what
wasn't,
she
yeah,
knew.
yeah. That's a small thing.
Very small thing. The other story is if he could get any wish possible, he'd love to be able to go back 10, 15 years in these couples' houses and go up into their attic and look at pictures of them when they were actually happy. At their wedding, at their kids' vacations, because there's so much hatred during this process where you said, I can't believe he would do that. Can't believe she would do that. He would just love to see it at a time where that wasn't the case. It gets that bad.
When you say that, I just remembered something that happened that I didn't see until now that was probably a moment I should have. I only had one baby, so I wasn't in I still had two more after this, but we were on a boat with another couple and it was nighttime. I don't know. The owner of the boat, the other guy, got turned around and got lost. Anyway, the weather got bad. He got nervous, and we were in some really choppy water. His wife was pregnant, and I have my baby on board who's like 7 months old.
Mm.
And so he called the Coast Guard and they came to rescue us. It was not a life or death situation. But anyway, they felt like we
Still.
need to be rescued. So the Coast Guard pulls up to their stern up to the stern of our boat. And it's like so it's really hard to get from one boat to the other. The other guy is like making sure his pregnant wife gets, handed off and is
Oh no.
okay.
Oh
And
no.
then he gets off, and my husband gets off first before me or the baby. But he says later when I question, he goes, I didn't want anyone handling the baby but me. Okay, that's nice. So I hand him the baby. He's okay with the baby, and then he goes. He just leaves, and I'm the only one on the boat. So I was like, okay, well, that was probably a sign.
Before I said that, I have a little bit of an ego. I don't know. Am I a narcissist? And the more we talk, I think I have daughters, Victoria. They're 20 and 23, and I want them to listen to this, and I want them to see, and I don't want them painting red flags pink, and I want them to see these things possibly, and anybody who's listening, we have to, you use the word disorder, and I've never really made that connection, but narcissism is a disorder.
It is. a personality disorder.
Mm,
It is one of the cluster B with borderline. I don't want to misspeak, so I better not say anymore. Bipolar. I can't remember. Anyway, it is a personality disorder.
right.
So it's a condition. It's not just someone behaving badly, right? It's out of their power to do it differently.
Mm,
Um, so when you're talking about the granola, I thought about another thing that happened with a candy bar. I used to go into New York, for those who are listening who aren't from this area, it's a train ride from Long Island into New York. For me, well, at the time I was living in Southampton, so it was a very long train ride, like a
mm,
3-hour
mm,
train ride. But
mm,
I
mm.
worked from home. I was a freelancer, so I worked from home. But every once in a while, I had to go into the city for a meeting or to drop something off to my person who I was working for. So I would have to go into the city for the day once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. So now I'm making, like I said, 6 figures. Like I have a healthy salary, but I have no control over it. He would give me money to go into the city with, and it was like $10. It's a long time ago. So I don't think that included my train ticket, but I had $10 for the day. And so, I would get coffee and a bagel or whatever for breakfast. And then at lunch, I would have to really count my pennies to make sure that I didn't go over. And then in the afternoon, because it was a long day, I wasn't getting home till 9 o'clock or something. At the end of the day, I like to get a candy bar, a chunky bar
Nice.
from the newsstand guy on my way to
Yeah.
the train to go home, right? To hold me over for the next 3 hours, and it was $1. And so I told him the next time I was going, one time I said, I need more than $10. It's not enough because I'm running out. And he goes, well, what are you spending it on? He's questioning me. Like, it's my money. He's questioning me on what I'm spending it on. And I told him exactly what I just told you. He goes, well, maybe you can't get that candy bar.
My God.
But P.S., he could go on sailing trips with his buddies, golf trips with his buddies, ski trips with his buddies, out to dinner anytime he wanted with his buddies.
Mm.
Um, nobody to answer to for that. But I couldn't buy a chunky bar.
What is so you work with people who are want to get divorced with that are a narcissist. So at what
Sometimes they
stage?
don't think they can get a divorce because they're where I was, where this
Ah,
is too hard, this is impossible. I'll never make it.
right.
So a lot of times people come to me thinking they just need help surviving in
Mm,
this toxic marriage. But with the right coaching and guidance, they
mm.
start reclaiming their power, they start getting stronger, they start seeing things differently, they start setting boundaries, and eventually they realize they do have the strength to leave.
Yeah, and you coach them. It's wonderful. When you were saying the story about going to the city with $10, there's also a story about how you just wanted health insurance and you
Oh,
had to do the research, and then he wouldn't ask me next month and ask me next month, and
amazing how many of these things you dug up. It's so funny. That was the beginning of the end. That was when that's what led to his choking me, was the health insurance. Um, we both worked for ourselves. He owned real estate and I was a freelance writer. So we didn't have corporate health insurance. So we had to pay for it. We had a very sweet deal because I took with me from a job I had health insurance, and I was grandfathered in at this rate. Which they made it very clear if I ever dropped them, I would never get that rate again. Right? It
mm,
was a grandfather situation. So I was very anxious to keep this really good, very cheap health insurance. And it came out of his checking account every month automatically, the payment. So I never saw it. I filed a claim one day and it came back to me with a letter saying, you haven't had coverage with us for 6 months. Like, so I confront him and I tell him, this is non negotiable. This is a deal breaker. This is never going to happen. I had an issue when I was a child where I got very sick unexpectedly, and if
You
my
sure
parents
did.
hadn't had health insurance, I don't know what would have happened. So I'm adamant now. This is my kids' lives you're dealing with now. So he said, okay. You do all the research, figure out what you need to do, and how much it's going to cost. And then next month, I'll give you the money for it. Just tell me what it is, and I'll give you the money for it. I do all the research. I have to join an association of entrepreneurs to get their health insurance, blah, 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 all this stuff. I do all this legwork. And I go, okay, it's going to be this amount of money. And he goes, okay, well, I don't have it this month, but ask me again next month, and then I'll have it, of course. So it's not a good month. It's not a good month for me to give you money for health insurance. So I knew he was never going to buy the health insurance. So that's why I stole my check that came in the mail that he always intercepted, even though it was made out to me, and he would cash it into his own account as his own. That's how the money went into his account. And, if I would never have thought to do that, because it would just be World War III, right? So, like, I was gearing up for World War III, that I had to take that check when it came somehow without his knowing, and I had to buy health insurance with it. And that's what our fight was over, that I took my own money to buy health insurance. How dare I?
And of course, the Victoria, the incident where he just lost it. The police came, and then he actually tried to perform the chokehold on the officer.
That's that grandiosity, the entitlement. Like, the rules don't apply. First of all, when the second, so he chokes me in front of one of our kids. The other two are upstairs. I pass out. My 6-year-old, the youngest, is there, thinks I'm dead.
Hmm.
So he's traumatized for a very long time after that. Um, when I come to, he's holding me up by the throat against the wall. And that's how I come to. And we're eye to eye. And I don't know, suddenly this was like, I knew what I had to do. Like, this was it. Now that lawyer was right. Eventually he was going to hurt me. Like, this was my way. I was going to get a divorce now. And I was actually relieved when this happened. So he lets me go. I think he was as scared as as my son was. I mean, he thought he had killed me too. I think he was like shocked. So I walk to the phone. Of course, there are landlines back then. I pick up the phone and I call the police. And he doesn't try to stop me, which is so weird, right? He doesn't try to
Hmm.
stop me. But later it comes out in papers. I dialed the 7-digit number for the Southampton police. I didn't call 911, which was not that new, but relatively new back then. And so he's telling in his court papers that I obviously orchestrated this whole thing to incite him to choke me so that I could divorce him, because I had premeditated the whole thing and learned the number to the police
Hmm.
station instead
It's
of
pretty
calling
good.
911. When in
Yeah.
reality, I was like the good mom who went to every PTA meeting, and police, come to talk to the PTA. And they said, don't call 911 if you have an emergency, because it will go to Hauppauge, which is a town very far away. And then
Right.
they will dispatch another call to someone, and just memorize the police number. And listen, it wasn't hard to do. It was like the same exchange everybody had. 2000, it was like not a hard number to
Right.
remember.
Right.
So of course I'd been told to do that. I did it. I called the number that I had memorized. But that got twisted. I can't tell you how many
Hmm.
people, lawyers, experts, law guardians, how did you know the number? Like I was this mastermind, evil
Wow.
manipulator, because I knew the number to the police station.
But then he
So
kept saying that you're going to ruin everything. Didn't he? He also said
yeah,
that.
so when I started talking, I mean, I don't know who he thought I was calling, like ordering a pizza. Like, who do you think
Yeah.
I'm calling? Right? Anyway, so I go, I'm at this address. I need help. Please send somebody. My husband just choked me. Whatever. He falls on his knees. the big crocodile tears start. He's crying, begging, don't do it, don't do it. And then he goes, you'll ruin everything. That is what stuck with me, because yeah, I would ruin everything he'd done, everything he worked so hard to do to get us into this horrible dynamic where he controlled everything. That was what I was about to ruin for him. And he was crying for him. And then the police said somebody is already on their way. A neighbor had called when they heard all the commotion. So the police were already on their way. Whether I had called or not, they were coming. They were actually at my doorstep. And they said, stay on the phone until the police are in the house. And the police came in. He opens the door for the police. And the very first thing he says is, my wife is crazy. She's on medication.
And of course, bail gets set, and they ask you if he has any money, and you say no, he can't get to any, and they put it to 5,000, but then he mouths off, and it gets to 50,000. And it's just he knows no boundaries in there.
No boundaries. Oh, so we skipped the part where the police put us in different rooms, as they do. What I don't know is there's a hand mark on my throat. I don't know.
Right.
And they were going to arrest him, whether I said anything or not. In fact, I said I couldn't press charges because he would kill me. And they said, figuratively or literally? I said, literally, he will kill me if I press charges. So they were going to press charges anyway. But they have him in the other room, and I can see it happening. He's explaining to them. He goes, I didn't choke her. I just pushed her. And he puts his hand on the officer's throat and pushes him on the throat. The guy goes for his gun. And he goes, don't ever touch a police officer. And then he goes, I just was showing you that and he does it again. A second time after they just told him not to touch him, he puts his hands on his throat again. They throw cuffs on him. That was the end of that. But yeah, no boundaries. He's entitled. He mouths off that, do you know who I am? And I coach soccer. I do this for the community. I'm great. I'm the best father. And he was telling them how much money he had, which was a lie. I have all, and they're like, oh, well, thank you for identifying yourself as a flight risk. We'll just raise your bail. It was insane. It was just insanity. And the horrible news is that it gets worse before it gets better. When you're leaving these guys, they cannot take that abandonment and that hurt to their ego, that they're being left. And then the smear campaign starts. They have to drag you through the mud, make up stories about you, tell anyone anything they can think of so that they're the victim.
Is there somebody you won't take on and coach?
I have not taken on clients. Clients who just want, a lot of people think they can throw money at a problem and not deal with it, right? Here's my money. You do what you have to do. It's like, I can't do this for you. I can help you do it, but you've got to do the work. You've got to actually invest in yourself and do the exercises I'm giving you and listen to me, and let's talk about things through so that, they don't want to have a session. They're too busy or they just aren't interested. It's like, this isn't something you can just pay me to do for you. I have to do it with you. So I won't take those clients, or I'll fire clients if they don't show up. I won't take clients who are the abuser.
Right.
Because a lot of times, I'm just going to say it's always been men who've come to me and they say, oh, she's a narcissist divorce coach, so I'm going to get her and convince them that she's the narcissist, that the spouse is the narcissist, not me.
Whoa.
And, I can tell right away that they're manipulating me, trying to pretend like the other person is the bad guy. And I can tell in their voice and their demeanor and how they describe things that they're making it up. that, they're trying to, I'm thinking of one in particular. He would not let it go. He kept calling me for years, trying to get me to work with him. He was abusive to me. So I'm like, this is not a good fit.
Are you bound to anything that they tell you that you can't be told? I mean, you're a
This
coach,
comes
right?
out a lot. I do not have like attorney-client privilege because
Right.
I'm not an attorney. There have been ways around that where the person's attorney can hire me on their behalf, and then I'm protected.
Ah.
But honestly, in fact, I'm being subpoenaed right now by somebody's ex-husband. And I was going through all the stuff that I'm going to have to turn over. There is nothing incriminating for her. It's all incriminating him. So bring it on. You're telling me your truth. We're not manipulating or masterminding your strategy in court and, oh, let's tell him this, but really, we're not doing that. We're building you up so that you can go the distance against this abusive person in a court.
Mhm.
Because if they were abusive in your marriage, they're going to amp it up in the divorce. So there's nothing really incriminating that can come out of anything I could ever hand over in a subpoena. And my
Victoria,
notes, even my notes, I'm not writing down anything that the other side can't know.
right. I mean, have you ever, I don't want to say resent, but you ever thought, why am I getting in this fight? You're being subpoenaed. You're being, you have to almost relive. And I thank you very much for doing this today with me, by the way, but you have to relive it through their experience as well. It must be taxing.
I did it first. It was very taxing at first. And I realized very early on, like, just in the first few months of working with clients, that I was taking it to bed with me. I
Mm,
was up at
mm,
night
mm,
worrying about people and their situations and living vicariously through them and suffering vicariously through them. And I realized I'm not going to be able to help anybody if I continue doing this way. So I made a conscientious effort to, when I click off of the Zoom call, I I'm not there anymore.
mm,
So I compartmentalize it. So before I get back on a call with someone, or if I have to answer an email for them, I'll look over my notes from the last meeting, and then I'm back where we were. So I can get back there. But this is the only way, I think, to do this long term.
mm.
And it's funny because sometimes I'll talk to someone and something just so crazy or far fetched will have happened. I go, oh, I can't wait to tell my husband tonight at dinner about this crazy story. And then it comes dinner time and I go, oh my God, I wanted to tell you the story. I'm like, I can't remember it because
Ah.
I've shut it out.
And I want to say that you're in a happy marriage now. You've got more stepkids. It's a wonderful place that you're in right now. I'm not a big sushi eater, but between when you go from one type of sushi to another, they always have a little slice of ginger, that kind of cleanse your palate. So I do the same thing. I talk to a lot of my clients and I talk to a lot of prospects, and it's problems, and I have to kind of clean it away and go. So I always think to myself, oh, I'll just take a little piece of
Oh, I
ginger.
like
That's the way
that.
I look at it.
I
Yeah,
like that.
that's the way I look at it. And uh, the it's easy to find you, right? We can. I want to talk about your website, and you've got great videos, and um, wow, you're doing such great work, Victoria. I really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Joe.
What
Thank you.
what what motivates you right now, Victoria McCooey? What motivates you?
I get so excited when I talk to someone. Before I got on with you, it happened. I talked to someone who, not that they're feeling so disheartened. That's not what makes me happy, but it makes me happy that I know I can change the way they feel, that I can give them hope and I can give them resources
Hmm.
and knowledge and guidance that's going to boost their their vision of this. Their ability to deal with what they're having to deal with. I get really, really excited about that. This all started when I did volunteer work right out of the gate after my divorce with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and
That's right.
I trained, it's a very long training I had to go through to be able to go to the hospital when a victim of domestic violence presented, and I would be given a very small window when nobody else was in the room, including their abuser, to coach them, to
Mm.
try to undo some of the brainwashing,
Mm.
to help them know that there were resources for them, and to hopefully have them ultimately know that they could leave the situation. I could never follow up with them. It was just that one little window. This lit me up like nothing has ever lit me up before. So that's why I knew I had to figure out how to make this my business. And so I'm still so passionate about it. I get emails years later. You're the first person I wanted to tell my divorce is finally final. I don't know how
Mm.
I would have
Mm.
done it without you. You know what that does for me? Like,
Mm.
I am in such a better place because you were there for me. Like, that's why I do it. It's people tell me that I have changed their life. I
So
mean,
then how do you measure success?
what else can you do that has that kind of effect on
That
people's
has
lives, you know?
yeah, it makes such a change,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess it's an easy question then, how do you measure success?
Whose success? My success?
How do you measure success? Yes.
By doing what you love
Mm.
and being able to make a living doing what you love. How great is that? I mean, it's just the perfect culmination for me because I've always been a writer. That's how
Mm.
I worked for all those years, and an editor. I'm using those skills because I'm helping people write their emails to the narcissist. I'm helping people condense their emails or language to their lawyer so that they save money on their communication with their lawyer. I'm helping people write affidavits for court. I'm using the language skills I have to make things really persuasive and pithy. And for the lawyer, I'm making it so bullet pointed and condensed that it saves my clients so much money in legal fees. So I like to think that I pay for myself, like the services are free because you're going to save
Mm.
that in legal fees, what you pay me. But look at what you get in exchange. Like you get all this other support and guidance and education. And, we become very good friends, my clients and we talk about really difficult things together, and they feel comfortable and they know that I'm not judging them because I was in the same place and I did
Mm.
way
Mm.
worse than they're doing. So I can't judge. I get it. I know how hard it is and why they do the things they do or did the things they did, how they got in this place. I get it. It doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you're not important. It's just like this, they're very good at what they do. Narcissists are very good at what they do.
Mm. And hopefully you can bring some reassurance to them that it's not their fault and it's they're not dumb. And it seems like a natural partnership, by the way, because lawyers don't want to do what you're doing, they want to practice the law. They
Well,
didn't go to school for that.
but I see some lawyers who let it happen because, they can charge you if it takes them an
Ah.
hour to read and respond to your long email about your
Mm.
feelings and how upset you are and or you're on the phone with them for an hour and you're paying them $400, they'll take it. Like,
Mm.
it depends on the lawyer. Good ones will say, I don't want to waste your money. You need to find a therapist or you need to find a coach or you need to find somebody else to do this with, but some won't.
And the difference between I've always thought the difference between a therapist and a coach, therapist kind of looks back, coach looks forward.
Exactly. So the story goes, if you show up with a suitcase at the therapist's office, the therapist will say, let's unpack this and
Mm.
figure out why you put all these things in this suitcase. And if you show up with the suitcase to the coach's office, the coach will say, where do you want to go? And let's figure out how you're going to get there.
Mm. So Victoria, I started my tech business across the sound there. By the way, were you the Coast Guard came? Was that in the Long Island Sound or was it on the South? It was in the North, it's Long Island Sound. Um, in the 90s, I was working way too much and I was not paying attention to myself. I was eating too much and drinking too much soda and got myself up to 340 pounds.
Wow.
The doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My oldest was just born. So I took the next 7 months, lost about 130 pounds. People ask me how, and you can't look at weight loss as a finishing line. You have to, 90% gain the weight back. You have to continue with that. And people ask how did I do it? How do I continue to do it? And it's not some simple answer. My one word answer is always discipline. I have a newborn. I'm living for much more than myself. Now I have to be focused. The sloppiness of my life is now being spilled over onto this beautiful child. And, I have to make big changes and discipline is through. So I made that conscious decision. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Victoria McCooey.
Even in my clients' lives, like leaving a toxic marriage is a decision. Right? It all starts with a decision, just like your weight loss journey started with a decision. So no one is going to come save you. No one is going to come in and say, oh, here, I got you. Do this, this, this. You have to make the conscientious choice to change. So if you just keep doing things, like if you had just kept eating and living the way you had been, you were just on this trajectory, right? You're just going to not, if you don't make a change, this line is not going to change its course. So there had to be a disruption. And that's what I tell my clients. You're living in this marriage or in this relationship. And if you keep doing the same things, nothing new is going to happen. The narcissist is not incentivized to change. Like I said, they've worked long and hard to get this right here where they want it. They're not going to make any changes. They're not going to make this better. They might tell you they will, but they're not going to. So it's up to you. So what are you going to do? And that's where they're stuck. They're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make that disruption. So it could be something small. It's for you. What was it? It was like, okay, what's the first thing? I'm going to stop drinking soda, maybe. Like, one small step, one thing. For them, it could be, I go, what we normally, if they don't know what to do, I give them something to do. And it's usually getting up earlier and having a morning ritual. And that's going to change their perspective. It's going to send a message to their brain that they're taking care of themselves. They're doing something important, doing something good for them. So they have a morning ritual that I give them to do. And the narcissist is not going to like this. It's not going to like you doing something different.
Interesting.
Not going to like that you're looking after yourself, making yourself a priority. They're going to try to tell you it's stupid, it's silly, you're nothing's going to happen. Oh my God, what are you, some voodoo you're doing? Like, they're going to make it uncomfortable so that you stop. They want everything to remain the same. So it's anticipating what they're going to do to sabotage it, whatever your change is, what they're going to try to do and not let it happen. Just like me with taking that money. All those years I could have done it. It was too scary though. But one day it was health insurance. It was non-negotiable now. It was non-negotiable that I took that money. So that you have to make that decision that nothing's going to stop you. And you're going to make some difficult change, no matter how small, and you're going to stick to it no matter how hard it gets when they come at you. That's the disruption.
You actually have a video where it's a graph of happiness and years.
Did you watch every one of my hundreds of videos?
And as you're like year one, you're here at the one, and how are you going to get up to there? And as you're talking, you say that. So it's just willpower. So I mean, I believe discipline is a spectrum, and I believe willpower is part of it. So you're just saying get disruptive, and you tell them you have to disrupt, because the narcissist doesn't want you to get better. They want to keep you down. My goodness. And and so discipline is a key factor there, I would think.
So just like a weight, when you're trying to lose weight, what do? You get a coach. right? You
Yeah.
need a weight loss coach. You need somebody in your ear all the time. Keep going, keep
Mm,
going, keep going.
mm,
Don't
mm,
stop. Oh,
mm.
you made a mistake. Get back on it. Get back
That's
on it,
right.
right? Don't let one little misstep spoil your whole journey. Yeah, it's really important in the beginning to have somebody pushing you on.
Certainly is. Victoria, what an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's just absolutely, I love what you're doing, and your glow is there, and you could see it in your videos. You could see that, this happened to me, a trait of a remarkable person is this happened to me and I'm just going to wallow in it. But you did the exact opposite. You're trying not to let it happen to others. You're getting what you've learned, trained yourself, and here I am available to not let it happen to you. And if it's going to, you want to shorten it and make it brief and recognize what's going on. And that's the mark of a remarkable individual. Thank you so much. How can we
Thanks.
get in touch with you? Anybody who's listening.
So you can go to my website, which is just my name, victoriamccooey.com. You can go find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, same name. You can go to my profile on any of those places, and there's a link tree where you can download free gifts, uh, PDFs that I've created for you. You can get on my calendar. The first step, a great disruption, would be to book a call with me.
Yeah.
That is a great first step. And we can figure out what's going on with you and what your roadmap might look like, how you can create a disruption in your own life. So that is the starting point. You can also book a call on my website. You'll see book a session, a click through there. Yeah, that's how you can reach me.
And Victoria is spelled the same way, Victoria. Now McCooey's McCooey. There's
So
two
it's
C's. Right. C O
COOEY.
EY. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. But if you're
Thank
just
you.
listening, Victoria McCooey. Thank you so much, Victoria. I really appreciate it. Next time I'm in the area, perhaps you, your husband, and my partner, I would get a cup of tea.
Sure. That sounds good.
You be well.
Thanks so much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.